Hello, friends around the world, and welcome to the program. The Pearl Harbor Friday night edition of Caravan to Midnight. Pearl Harbor, 77 years ago. My dad had scarcely been 21 years old for 3 months when he witnessed the aircraft flying around, killing people with the big red meatballs painted on the sides of the aircraft. My grandfather, after whom I am named, actually helped build the USS Maryland, the boat on which my father was stationed, and his helper, Joe Maxwell, over the years assembled a small collection of silverware taken from the officers' and enlisted men's mess. Every morning when I make coffee, I stir the coffee with one of those spoons. It's the same spoon every day. And I wonder every day, who held that spoon? What did that man go on to do later on in life? Did that man make it home alive? You know, we're involved in some very, very serious business here at Caravan to Midnight. We really are. And thank you for being a part of it. You have enabled me to do this work because it's the only work I've ever wanted to do. I watched this nonsense go on for decade after decade, and I wanted to do something. I even have old micro cassette recordings of myself going on and on about various topics. This really started rolling in the Clinton administration. But even before that, I was writing down my notes and opinions on what really transpired on November 22nd, 1963. And it's amazing, some of the observations that I made in those days. This is like not even quite to junior high, before 7th grade. They proved to be pretty accurate. It was gratifying, at least. You know, I can't really prove it, but I proved it to myself, so that's okay. I thought, say, maybe this is my game, you know, maybe this is what I should be doing. Well, look, there's so much going on today, I scarcely know where to begin. Let me talk about a Q post that went up just a while ago. At what point do they wake up? Where we go one, we go all. Okay? This is a go signal in the Q. Okay? It means that Q and something to do with space and time, meaning a go signal equals Q plus. This means that a signal was just given. So watch for that. You'll be getting a more detailed briefing on the QAnon post. Q is most assuredly real. It absolutely is real. And it's not one person. It is many people acting as one person. Remember that. We're going to win this. We are going to win this. It's going to be a very, very interesting slog. As a matter of fact, I think it's going to be so interesting, we won't even notice that we are slogging. Not a bit. Now, while 11/22/63 may have been the activation point for the deep state, things really got rolling in World War II. Jets became operational aircraft. Nuclear weapons were employed. The wall went up between the West and the East in Europe. A war carefully orchestrated by, in my opinion, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who had deep sympathy for communism. Many of his contemporaries did. And all of these scientists and intelligence officers and technicians who served the Third Reich wind up coming to the United States under Operation Paperclip. Among them, Reinhard Gehlen. You've heard about this earlier in the week. Reinhard Gehlen, Willy Messerschmitt, Wernher von Braun, the rocket genius, Joseph Mengele, who appears to have been working with Dr. Mary Sherman. While she was in New Orleans, he was in Chicago at the University of Chicago. There was another program that came out of those boom years following World War II. Remember, the United States was not a world power until after World War II. But from 45 until easily 1960, it was just unprecedented growth and invention, all kinds of fantastic things, including the transistor that Jack Kilby came up with, right over here at Texas Instruments. Well, one of the things that really got rolling in the early part of the mid-1950s was a thing called MKULTRA. Here's an article from thesun.co.uk. As France is burning, Paris is just about on fire, and these people, they're really revolutionaries. Oh, Macron backed off on that carbon tax immediately. Not enough, sorry. They want to go all the way to the Élysée Palace. I mean, they want to do another French Revolution. They really do. And these people are mad. The French, once you tick the French off, they start rocking and rolling big time and heavy. They're sick of this mass migration. They're sick of this socialist nonsense. They're sick of being taxed out of existence, literally, and having to accommodate all these migrants at the same time while their culture is destroyed. That's not going to work. I'll tell you something else. Greece is ablaze practically also. A police brutality killing of a teenager 10 years ago. Well, they're getting ticked off about that. Angela Merkel has announced she's not going to run for re-election. She's got a replacement that they sometimes refer to as Mini Merkel, but she says she's not Mini Merkel at all. They differ on several key points, and migration, I suspect, is one of them. And you heard last night that the UN has decided they want to arrange to criminalize any criticism of mass migration. If it could be any plainer, I don't see how, what this globalist agenda has been all along. And I say again, this is exactly what got me kicked off of Coast to Coast AM. And thank you very much, Coast, for doing that. All right. Now, one of these things that came out in the early part of the middle 1950s was MKUltra. And right here in the sun.co.uk is a disturbing article. Spy Secrets, Truth About CIA's Illegal MKUltra Mind Control Experiments Using Drugs, Hypnosis, and Electronic Devices Revealed in Sensational New Documents Hidden for Decades. The new documents released under the Freedom of Information Act reveal how the CIA experimented on both humans and animals using drugs, hypnosis, and electronic devices as part of the top secret and illegal mind control project MKUltra. Shockingly, the swaths of information still missing or redacted in the records could mean the CIA is still carrying out the experiments to this day, according to experts. One document details how CIA planned to drug, quote, criminals, awaiting trial, held in a prison hospital ward, end quote, in a bid to develop improved techniques in drug interrogation. Another document details the CIA's interest in developing ways to cause amnesia in humans using experiments, quote, no matter how weird, inconclusive, or unusual, end quote. The quotes are coming from the documents. It goes on to detail how they were looking to find ways of developing hypnotic speaking techniques, which would control the minds of large audiences, in quotes, and heighten group susceptibility, also in quotes. Experiments which were, quote, too dangerous, too shocking, too unusual for routine testing would be of interest to us, end quote. The memo from 1956 reads. The records also detail mind control experiments on dogs, cats, and mice with a cocktail of drugs and by implanting electronic devices, most likely as a precursor to human experiments. They also researched electric fish who can zap each other with electricity in a bid to create a super soldier who could do the same thing. The records were obtained by researcher John Greenwald, Jr., who published them last week on his website, The Black Vault. John, 37, from California, told Sun Online he's been fighting since 1999 to get the CIA to hand over the documents and says they, quote, completely rewrite the history, end quote, of the controversial project. John said, are the CIA still trying to cover up projects that took place in the 50s and 60s? In my opinion, yes. They are trying to cover it up. And that is evidenced not just by what I went through to get the documents, but the documents themselves. So you'll see through these records, they were doing a lot of different types of research with drugs on cats and dogs and other animals. They were implanting electronic devices into animals to see whether electronic impulses can essentially control the brain. If you can control and master that type of technology with cats and dogs, you're very close to doing that with humans. And so this is a kind of very interesting look into the beginning days of that research. There's also one document that specifically breaks down multiple project proposals, but the majority of project names on the document are redacted. That means that whatever these projects were, they won't even tell you the name of the project, let alone what they were doing. It shows that the entire story is not yet out, which is contrary to what the CIA wants us to believe. MKUltra was the code name for a top-secret and illegal program of human experiments which the CIA carried out in the early 50s until it was officially halted in 1973. The aim of the project was to identify and develop mind-control drugs and procedures to be used in interrogations and torture in a bid to force confessions and control behavior. Although CIA admitted to running the covert operation during congressional hearings in the 70s, they claimed that all records relating to it had been destroyed. The CIA lied? Oh, I can't believe such a thing. John's battle for information started in 1999 when he requested the only documents relating to MKUltra that the CIA said they had not destroyed. 30,000 pages of financial records. Follow the money, and John did. CIA finally provided John with the 30,000 pages on CD-ROM in 2004, which they claimed were a full and complete set of records related to the project. It wasn't until 2016 that a fellow researcher realized a staggering 4,358 pages, which the CIA claimed were on the CD, were actually missing, and John began his fight to have the missing records released. Although CIA initially claimed John was wrong and fought him hard, that's in quotes, he finally received 2 separate boxes of records in the past month. Most worrying, though, John says, is that there are still at least 1,245 pages still missing, which could contain even more disturbing details. He believes the missing information may relate to top-secret mind control projects which are still taking place. Quote, "The possibilities behind the redacted information are honestly endless. We don't know what's underneath this classified material," John said. "We've known for many years that MKUltra's related material was destroyed, but if you look at these documents, you realize that there was a lot going on outside of MKUltra, still drug, mind control, and manipulation related. You begin to realize that MKUltra may ultimately just be the tip of the iceberg. If we know X, what the heck is redacted under Y? We can't know for sure, but it's certainly scary to think about. They are redacting the information because it's absolutely a threat to national security to tell us. Could that threat be that they are still doing this research to this day? Yes, possibly. It makes sense. We know that the United States government does things that go beyond the law, that go beyond the norm of what was approved. Edward Snowden has proven that phone tapping goes on, which obviously is a little bit different than mind control, but historically, these intelligence agencies have been proven to have been able to get away with a lot that goes against the law. So absolutely, the CIA could be continuing this type of research decades later. When you look at the records, you realize they were making huge accomplishments with this research. If all this stuff was declassified with not a whole lot of redactions and just failure after failure, then there's probably a chance that they indeed canceled funding to the program. But when you read these materials, you realize they were actually making leaps and strides. I'm sure they are using what they found in the 50s and the 60s and beyond, probably today. John, who's made over 9,000 Freedom of Information requests and posted over 2 million pages of documents online since 1996, believes CIA went out of its way to prevent him from obtaining the documents and has letters and written evidence that prove they lied and misled him over the past 20 years. He's now determined to obtain the missing documents. He said, "There's been multiple times that they just kept giving me bad information, and a lot of times in writing where they're telling me one thing that isn't necessarily true. If there were just one instance of a frustrating moment, we can put it down to a mistake, human error. But if you count up everything they've put me through to get these documents, that would be ridiculous. And you can only talk it up to the fact that they were not telling me the truth. There's really no other way around it. But my fight is still going or the missing documents, or trying to get the CIA to say where those 1,245 pages went. Well, that opens up quite a number of possibilities, doesn't it? Sirhan, for starters, he thought he was at a shooting range. And if you hear the recordings, you can tell that there are gunshots coming from different parts of the room. I mean, you can hear this. Remember all the trouble? I want to say it was CBS News that did this big deal on, oh, they're going to set up all these microphones, and they're going to do this big experiment down there at Dealey Plaza, right there on Elm Street, where President Kennedy was assassinated, where he was murdered, shot in the head by cowards, amoral, inhuman, murderous cowards. So they set up all these microphones to, oh, well, they're trying to prove, apparently, that, I mean, it appears to me at least, that they're trying to prove that, well, the reflection from the various buildings around there of the 3 gunshots from the 6th floor, well, those were just reverberating echoes. Those weren't multiple gunshots. There was lead flying around all over the place there, but the 2 shots that killed John Kennedy came from the front, from that little patio area, which has been erased, covered up. The one that hit Connolly came from somewhere else. It was a simple triangulated hit. Probably, one in that patio area, one across the triple streets there, Elm, Main, and Commerce, and one behind. And I suspect that the one that hit John Connolly came from opposite the gunman who had a head-on shot to President Kennedy. But anyway, I guess I would say we'll never know, but I think maybe we will. Now, in flat-nosed, wild-eyed, insane-looking Democrat Latina news, Ocasio-Cortez threatens to retaliate against Trump Jr. over a meme. Twitter explodes with accusations of ethics violations. Socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez threatened to use the powers of her elected office to retaliate against Donald Trump Jr. on Friday after the president's son posted a meme trolling her on his personal Instagram account. So this is what this moron says, Ocasio-Cortez. I have noticed that Junior here has a habit of posting nonsense about me whenever the Mueller investigation heats up. Please keep it coming, Junior. It's definitely a very, very large brain idea to troll a member of a body that will have subpoena power in a month. Have fun, she concluded. Well, Ocasio-Cortez is not really very smart. She's a moron, and it only takes about 10 seconds worth of listening to her to determine she is most assuredly a sub-genius. Almost immediately, taking this from the dailywire.com, numerous political analysts, commentators, and pundits noted that Ocasio-Cortez's comments likely constituted an ethics violation. So start off your career with that while you're making macaroni and cheese talking about you don't have enough money as a former waitress before you decide to serve in government to afford to live in Washington, D.C. Well, maybe you ought to just turn over the seat to somebody that's got a brain in their head and just go back to waitressing. Just saying. Listen, I can talk that way if I want to. I used to actually roll pizzas. Do you know what I mean by that? Roll the dough. I even decided to spin a couple of them. It was a pizza inn. That's a story in itself. But anyway, I thought the manager was a little strange, but the district manager was even stranger. By the time it's all over, I pulled my knife out on him and told him I need to get back to my side of the city, if that's okay. I had no idea it was a den of iniquity, but it was. But anyway, I've worked some of the worst jobs on earth, okay? I have worked jobs that involved cleaning up the debris after the Mexican laborers finished with their construction of some inexpensive, even by those days standards, mobile homes. Yeah, the job opportunities weren't that great when you're 15 years old, so you just took what you could get. Unbelievably ridiculous job. So I can criticize anybody's line of work that I want to because I work some of the most Charlie Romeo Alpha Papa jobs that there are out there. The only thing I haven't done is shovel you know what in Louisiana. That's got to save something for later, I thought. So anyway, it's worth noting that the official health ethics manual explicitly prohibits this kind of threat that Ocasio-Cortez just issued against Donald Trump Jr. for his refusal to support her political agenda. Federalist's Sean Davis wrote on Twitter, "The House prohibition on the very kind of threat that @Ocasio 2018 just made to @Donald Trump Jr. couldn't be clearer. Lawmakers are, quote, prohibited from threatening punitive action, end quote, against people/groups for not politically supporting the lawmaker. Ethics Committee should investigate." I predict the Ethics Committee will investigate. Now, here's some other stuff. Get this. From justice.gov, former Justice Department employee pleads guilty to conspiracy to deceive U.S. banks of millions of dollars in foreign lobbying funds. A former employee with the U.S. Department of Justice pleaded guilty today for his role in a conspiracy to deceive banks in the United States about the source and purpose of millions of dollars sent from overseas to finance a lobbying campaign on behalf of foreign interests, announced Assistant Attorney General Brian A. Benkowski of the Justice Department's Criminal Division. George Higginbotham, 46, of Washington, D.C., who was employed at the Justice Department as a senior congressional affairs specialist from July 2016 to August 2018, pleaded guilty to one count of conspiracy to make false statements to a bank before U.S. District Judge Colleen Collar-Cotelli of the District of Columbia. According to admissions made in connection with his plea, in 2017, Higginbotham helped facilitate the transfer of tens of millions of dollars from foreign bank accounts to accounts in the United States to finance a lobbying campaign to resolve civil and criminal matters related to the Department of Justice's investigation of the embezzlement and bribery scheme concerning Malaysia Development Berhad. Higginbotham admitted that the foreign principal behind the lobbying campaign was allegedly to be the primary architect of the 1MDB scheme. Higginbotham, a Justice Department employee, played a role in any aspect of the investigation and failed to influence any aspect of the department's investigation of 1MDB. Higginbotham further admitted that another purpose of the lobbying campaign was an attempt to persuade high-level U.S. government officials to have a separate foreign national who was residing in the United States on a temporary visa at the time removed from the United States and sent back to his country of origin. In order to conceal the identity of the foreign principal behind the lobbying campaign, Higginbotham admitted to conspiring to make false statements to financial institutions in the United States concerning the source and purpose of the funds. Higginbotham also admitted to working on various fake loan and consulting documents in order to deceive banks and other regulators about the true source and purpose of the money. Department of Justice of the Inspector General and the FBI are investigating the case. Deputy Chief John Keller and trial attorneys Ryan Ellersick and James Mann and Sean Mulreen and Nicole Lockhart of the Criminal Division's Public Integrity Sector, and Deputy Chief Wu Lee and trial attorney Joshua Sohn of Criminal Division's Money Laundering and Asset Recovery Section are prosecuting the case. Wow. Now here's a shock. This is from TrumpServativeNews.club. Comey not cooperating with GOP lawmakers, refuses to answer questions in closed-door interview. Comey's testifying on Capitol Hill, or he did today, as part of joint investigation with the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee into the handling of the Clinton email investigation and his involvement in FISA-gate. The former FBI director, that should be the fired FBI director, fought the House subpoena. He wanted to testify in a public domain to avoid answering questions. Well, of course he did. Comey's lawyer sparred with general counsel for the House of Representatives and urged a judge to block a subpoena requiring him to give a closed-door deposition. Comey caved because he didn't want to be held in contempt. On Friday, Comey continued to fight like hell. He's not cooperating with GOP lawmakers and refusing to answer certain questions. Well, it's all going to come out anyway, James. You might as well. How about this one? From Zero Hedge. I know where all the bodies are buried. That's a quote. Clinton Foundation CFO spills beans to investigators. The CFO, Chief Financial Officer of the Clinton Foundation, thinking he was meeting an old professional acquaintance, admitted to investigators that the charity had widespread problems with governance, accounting, and conflicts of interest, and that Bill Clinton has been commingling business and personal expenses for a long time, reports The Hill's John Solomon. Clinton Foundation CFO Andrew Kessel made the admissions to investigators from MDA Analytics LLC, a firm run by accomplished ex-federal criminal investigators, who have been probing the Clinton Foundation for some time. Kessel told MDA, quote, "There's no controlling Bill Clinton. He does whatever he wants and runs up incredible expenses with foundation funds," according to MDA's account of the interview. Bill Clinton mixes and matches his personal business with that of the foundation. Many people within the foundation have tried to caution him about this, but he does not listen. There's really no talking to him. MDA compiled Kessel's statements, as well as over 6,000 pages of evidence from a whistleblower they'd been working with separately, which they secretly filed with the FBI and IRS over a year ago. MDA has alleged that the Clinton Foundation engaged in illegal activities and may owe millions in unpaid taxes and penalties. Wow. In addition to the IRS, the firm's partners have had contact with prosecutors in the Maine Justice Department in Washington and FBI agents in Little Rock, Arkansas. And last week, a federal prosecutor suddenly asked for documents from their private investigation. The memo also claims Kessel confirmed to the private investigators that private lawyers reviewed the foundation's practices, once in 2008, and the other in 2011, and each found widespread problems with governance, accounting, and conflicts of interest. Kessel said, "I've addressed it before, and let me tell you, I know where all the bodies are buried in this place." 48-page submission dated August 11, 2017 supports its claims with 95 exhibits, including internal legal reviews that the foundation conducted on itself in 2008 and 2011. As Solomon noted in January, the Little Rock FBI office has been spearheading an investigation into pay-for-play schemes and tax code violations, according to law enforcement officials. These officials, who spoke only on condition of anonymity, said the probe is examining whether the Clintons promised or performed any policy favors in return for largesse to their charitable efforts, or whether donors made commitments of donations in hopes of securing government outcomes. The probe may also examine whether any tax-exempt assets were converted for personal or political use, and whether the foundation complied with applicable tax laws. Meanwhile, the Clinton Foundation has been under investigation by the IRS since July 2016, according to a January report by the Dallas Observer. Wow, the Dallas Observer, it's about time those guys did something. That's usually just a horrible rag not fit to line a birdcage with. Kudos, you finally come to the surface. That's beautiful, you bottom feeders. After 64 GOP members of Congress received letters urging them to push for an investigation. The investigation is being handled by their Dallas office, far away from Washington insiders. Get this, quote, "There is probable cause that the Clinton Foundation has run afoul of IRS rules regarding tax-exempt charitable organizations and has acted inconsistently with its stated purpose," MDA alleged in its memo, adding, quote, "The foundation should be investigated for all of the above-mentioned improprieties. The tax rules, codes, statutes, and the rule of law should and must be applied in this case." Foundation officials confirmed that Kessel met with MDA investigators, but said that he strongly denies that he said or suggested that the Clinton Foundation or President Clinton engaged in inappropriate or illegal activities. Mr. Kessel believed he was meeting an old professional acquaintance who was looking for business from the foundation. The foundation added in a statement. MDA was specifically created to investigate 501c3 charities and research the Clinton Foundation at its own expense in the hope that the whistleblower submission they compiled might result in a government reward if the IRS was able to corroborate wrongdoing and recover tax dollars. So it was money rather than justice that was the motivator. Okay, whatever it takes, right? The IRS sent multiple letters in 2017 and 18 to MDA Analytics confirming it had received the submission, and it was, quote, still open and under active investigation, end quote. But shortly before last month's election, the agency sent a preliminary denial letter indicating it did not pursue the allegations for reasons that range from a lack of resources to possible expiration of the statute of limitations on some allegations. I asked a half dozen former federal investigators to review the submission and key evidence. All said the firm's analysis of tax-exempt compliance issues would not be that useful to federal agencies that have their own legal experts for that. But they stressed the evidence of potential criminality was strong and warranted opening an FBI or IRS probe. So how about that? It's all coming down. It really is all coming down, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I'll tell you what, I hope you have not lost your spirit of adventure, of exploration, of discovery and all that, because there's going to be a whole lot of it. This is absolutely insane. Looks like John Kelly's out. That's probably kind of good. They don't even speak to each other anymore, General Kelly and President Trump. I wonder what General Kelly did. I really wonder. Let's see, what else do we have that might be of interest to you? Do you know 3.9 billion people out of a possible 7, or is it 9 this week? I can never keep up because the number changes all the time. Well, anyway, 3.9 billion people are using the internet. The Eiffel Tower has been closed. I want to go back to this France thing for a minute. Don't look now, but the EU is crumbling. It really is. In the UK, the Brits were prepared to deploy military to quell any riotous activity that might occur from this Brexit situation. What a mess. And now France has closed the Eiffel Tower, and they're deploying military and police vehicles along with military and police to chill this riot out. Now here's the problem. The problem is there's going to be a lot of casualties. There always are. Casualties meaning some fatalities and some wounded. But that whole EU socialist dream is collapsing right before their eyes. It really is. The UK wants out of this European Union. Not all of it. Now they're claiming, I saw a thing that was in the House of Commons, you know, and it's like 47 to 53. I think it was 47 to 52 with 1%, like, I don't know, undecided, but participated anyway or something. But anyway, it's a slim percentage margin. But if their polls are as accurate as ours, then it could be that 80% of the Brits want to leave the EU rather than, oh, it's split right down the middle. Notice everywhere you look, it's split right down the middle. I think that's part of a psyop. I do. Now, I'm not reaching for a psyop every time I see something unusual, like a strange pattern of vines growing on the fence or leaves in an unusual place. Hell, I don't even reach for conspiracy theory. When on the afternoon of an interview with Ole Damagard, you know, about the shoes that are always magically appearing and being photographed anytime there's a horribly, potentially tragic event, a shooting, a bombing or something like that. I didn't scream conspiracy theory when I said, you know, I pulled up to the post office in a regular parking place, and it wasn't there when I parked, but when I came out, less than a minute later, there was a single shoe right in front of my car. He said, that wasn't any accident. Well, maybe he's right, because here's the thing. Now, this is the point where it gets a little crazy. Ladies and gentlemen, without a doubt, there is interdimensional activity in progress right now all over the place. Things appear, things disappear. And I'm not saying this is an interdimensionally delivered shoe. I'm not. But I am saying that in the 30 some odd years that I have been going to that post office with a certain amount of regularity, but not much. Usually I send somebody else. I've never seen a lone shoe. So it was either deliberate or it was one heck of an interesting coincidence to have a single little shoe, brand new tennis shoe, sitting there by itself in front of my car, which was in its little parking slip. Ridiculous. However, interdimensional shoes aside, there is a lot of interdimensional activity. A lot of the information that's being delivered to various sources who are then delivering it to you are coming through what I would deem an interdimensional channel. This is much, much more serious than we ever thought. You know, we think that we're just living our lives in 3 dimensions here, and what you see is what you get. And some are good people, and some are not so good. We'd like to be friends with them, but no, they want to rob banks, or they're petty thieves, or they're just not nice people, and that's all. And obey the 10 commandments, and everything will be fine. In the meantime, just stay in your zone, stay in your bubble. Don't talk too much. Don't do too much. Just go to work. Just drive to work, or get there, have a bus, whatever, walk, and then do your work, and then come home, and then pretty much do nothing. What is there to do after work? If you have a significant other, there's stuff that you can do together just by sitting together. But if you're single, then what do? You go to a restaurant, you go someplace to shop, you go for a walk. I mean, what do you do? And that's the bubble that we live in. We have our little routines. We don't break from them. However, on the other side of what meets our eyes, as we survey whatever we're surveying, there's a lot of action going on. If you were to get yourself a really powerful telescope, and you can get a real powerful one very inexpensively now. They used to be quite expensive, but they've got some real good ones out there now. They're just downright cheap. And you point that thing up into the night sky, and you just keep your eye on it for a while, you will see all kinds of things flying around. NASA has finally admitted that some of these aerial phenomena cannot be dismissed, nor can they be explained. Well, I can explain it. There's interdimensional activity. How do you get from one side of the galaxy to the other if you're not using portals to effectively shrink the distance? And certainly, if not shrink the distance, then shrink the time it takes to cover those distances. There is evidence, there's communication. I mean, I'm talking about physical evidence being presented that wasn't there a minute ago, but it's there now. I'm not talking about here at the studio, but I'm talking about among the populace. And everybody's doing exactly the same thing as they are predicted to do. Say nothing or you'll sound nuts. Well, I'm not worried about sounding nuts. I know what I've experienced, and I know what I've gone, oh man, I must be just imagining things. I know the difference between that and, wow, look at that. Let me go over and touch it carefully. Yep, it's touchable. This is a real thing. So be on the lookout for the unusual. Be on the lookout for the unexpected. Always remember that the most interesting things, almost always, come from where you least expect it. So look in those places. Determine what is the least likely avenue that something wonderful could be delivered to me, or something terrible. Think about it and engage. You are alive now. This is probably the most exciting time to be alive in millennia. Seriously. Certainly 2,000 years. 2018 plus 6. That's what I'm thinking. There's so much more. I mean, I could go on for a long time. Ebola spreads to a major city. It's like a horror film, it says. This is disturbing about what's happening in Europe. But let me just, before I go on to anything else, let me just say this. As a result of your waking up and you're talking about it, all this stuff is being measured. Look, if they're spying on you all the time, and they are. Let's see, how many attempted incursions have I had today just on my phone here? Okay, I've had this thing on here. It's a good one too, for about 3 months. There have been 232 attempts to open this microphone. I'm not talking about Shazam or SoundHound either. I've had one block today. Okay, so they're listening to your phone all the time, and don't think they're not. They are. They're tracking everywhere you go. The computing capabilities on such a spectacular level now that they know everywhere you've been, most likely everything that you've eaten if they want to look close enough at it, from your purchases at the grocery store to your purchases at a restaurant. They know it. They've got it all. Do you think that they are also listening to conversations where people are saying, you know what, this is Bravo Sierra. These mugs are, they're doing this, they're doing that. And what about this guy? And what about that woman? What about this congressman? What about that senator? What about that last president? What about this president? They're hearing all of that too. There's only one countermeasure to the truth, and you know what it is, but I'll say it anyway. Lies. Lies are the countermeasure to the truth. Unfortunately, because they're lies, they can be easily discovered. They can be easily unraveled. The truth can be unpackaged. pretty easily also. And when you unpack the truth, you go, wow, look at all these lies over here regarding this very subject. This will make it even easier. The truth is winning, and it's true. Where we go one, we go all. So if you're watching this news segment on YouTube, or if you're just watching it on the Caravan to Midnight homepage, thank you, number one, for being here. And I would thank you again if you would consider, if you're not already a member of Caravan, to joining Caravan. I would thank you very much for joining Caravan. The Caravanners have made everything possible. If you're just now picking up this, I mean, new people come on every day. So for the Caravanners who have heard this already, I'll be brief, but to the point. Operation Classified raised tens of thousands of dollars for the legal defense fund of General Michael T. Flynn. Do you think for one moment, the way that the special prosecutor has run things, that it might have occurred to that man based on maybe some information that he got from other people in the surveillance community, that you're going to wind up with a populist uprising on your hands if you don't go easy? It's been made abundantly clear that this man has been persecuted. He hasn't been prosecuted, he's been persecuted. And if you want to get out of this with a shred of what might be called a reputation intact, you better back off. Do you think that's even possible? Well, I'll tell you, you bet it is. Every person who joins Caravan to Midnight has access to over 1,000 programs. Every one of those programs contains something that you can use in your personal life. You have a huge part of your brain that's not even being used yet. Everybody does. Your capabilities are absolutely off the charts. If you were to find out what your capabilities are, your capabilities are, if you were ever to learn what they truly are, you could be sitting there all kinds of physically screwed up. You remember that joke? It was cruel back in grade school. Somebody would go, why am I like this? You know, doing some twitching, and the answer would come from on high, because you ticked me off. Okay, well, maybe you did in a past life. Who knows? Maybe some people get past lives and others don't. Maybe some people down here are what you would call angels, and they don't even know it. If you were to find out what your capabilities, I'm talking to you. I don't even know you. I'm still talking to you. You would be nearly frightened to find out just what you are capable of, the power that you actually have. Let me go at it another way. Do you believe, starting in school, sit down, be quiet? Do you think that your potential was restricted in any way when you were in school? Do you think the social circle that you ran in restricted you in any way? Do you believe that between the classroom and your social circle, you were indoctrinated with the idea that you must fit in and go by these rules, whether they're spoken, written, or unspoken and unwritten? You will fit in, or we will ostracize you, which will produce an emotional effect on you. Do you think that happened to you? Did that ever happen to you? You bet it did. Sometimes repression comes in a very welcoming form, a very embraceable form, but it's still oppression and it's still restriction. So I urge you, take that 5 minutes in the morning. Take that 5 or 10 minutes or 15 minutes in the morning, every morning. Just do it. Find a place in your house where you can do this. It doesn't matter if it looks, you're not decorating a set. You're making yourself comfortable. Get over there where you can see the morning light. It's gray right now. It's a quiet hour and therefore a melancholy hour. I know. But in a minute, the sun's going to come out. If it doesn't come out and it's a gray day, it'll still get lighter. You'll know it's morning, right? Right. But we have more sunlight in the morning than we have overcast in the mornings. That's just the result of a system. So every chance that you get to just go by yourself. Go by yourself. Or go with your mate, your spouse, your friend, whatever. Your matey. But it's better by yourself, because then it's between you and your creator, nobody else. No other energies around, nothing like that. But there are exceptions. And if it's an exception, then roll with it. You know if it's an exception or not. You also know if you feel like, I really need a few minutes alone. Well, everybody needs a few minutes alone, so take them. You let that morning light hit your face while you are in deep meditation. Just turn everything off. Don't think about anything. If you are going to think about something, let your meditation begin with, thank you for my life. Thank you for allowing me to be here. Start like that. Commune. Now, I'm not going to get preachy with you here, but I'm going to tell you, if you believe in God, you're on the right track. If you believe in Christ, now we're getting somewhere. Thank him for your life. Pray for supernatural wisdom. It's written in Scripture. If you ask, he will give it to you. It's written in Scripture. You receive not because you ask not. It's written in Scripture, but let him not come doubting. For he who doubts is like a branch tossed upon the waves. And he should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. If you doubt him, so don't. Let yourself go. Be willing to believe it. Be willing to see it. And you will. Because if you're not willing to, you won't, even if it's right in front of you. Do that thing and understand you are part of a brain pool. But I say again, you are a part of it. You are a freestanding individual with great power. You are not a moron. If you are a moron, well, you know where your proclivities lie, and you know where your social ideology lies. If you cannot change your mind and see that communism and socialism and all the derivatives of it are anti-human, second only to being anti-God, and therefore anti-life. If you can't see that, then I'm wasting your time, okay? And you're wasting mine. But you're really not wasting mine as much as you're wasting your own time. We want you to join us. We want you to think straight. We want you to break your programming and stop believing this nonsense that's repeated over and over and over again. How could an entire country be split right down the middle unless there's been something? Let's say it's really true. Well, what else but MKULTRA derived programs of influencing mass audiences? How could that happen without that? How could it happen without some sort of mass mind control? How could so many people behave so stupidly and say the stupid things that they do and try to enact such insanely stupid ideas and programs and projects? Look at the ones that are the most successful, such as MKUltra. That is a successful program. But trying to get everybody to get along, that program doesn't exist. That's why we all don't get along. Somebody's always out there ginning up those who hold the most base of human emotions: revenge, resentment, anger, blame, all of these things. This is anathema to the human being. It's a restriction. They don't even realize that the more they focus on these things, the bigger chains they forge to enslave themselves to the delight of their unseen cowardly masters. And the biggest coward of them all, the father of lies, who will say or do anything to you in your head unless you pray that that entity not be allowed to speak to you or influence you in any way, that you reject evil, that you reject damaging any human being, physically, mentally, emotionally, most importantly, spiritually. You reject any entity that does that. And we're calling it this one, the adversary, Satan, as is written in the Bible. Reject it. Otherwise, he will get into your head. The most successful programs run by humans against humans are run by people who want to do humans harm. So remember it. Now, this interview is really strange. I kept looking at the name. I'm looking at the name. There's a lot of stuff going on. And I thought, what? So I never expected to hear the words come out of this man's mouth that we're going to hear, but it should yield some good things. And as, just like a circle, pretty simple, isn't it? But wow, what would we do without one? What would we do without a wheel? What? Or a compass that could make a circle? How could we do anything without a circle? Well, in the manner of the circle, this is elegantly streamlined and very simple, but it's the good simple. I think you're going to like this a lot. Hey, seriously, you'd be helping us out a lot. These conferences are expensive to put on. Gear's expensive, and you have to pay people if they're going to make it their full-time job all the time. So you would really be helping us out if you consider joining Caravan to Midnight. You can try it out for $10. You have access to the entire archive for 1 month for $10. But after that, we'd like for you to join us. And we're going to continue this. We're going to just keep doing this for a while because the speakers at Operation Classified were so good and everybody had such a great time and just walked out going, I mean, they felt like Moses in those depictions of him coming down off the mountain with his head like 5 times the size it's supposed to be because their brains had been just activated and increased in size, that we're just going to keep this up there for a while. And you can have that entire archive. And it's hours and hours and hours and hours and stuff. It's great stuff. It's excellent stuff. It'll help you, and it'll help people that you talk to about this. That and a year to Caravan with over 1,030 programs in it, plus the archive of ARC Midnight. So you're pushing up toward 1,200 programs, $95. That's it. Pretty good. The live stream was $100 a quarter, $60 a year to Caravan, right? So would have been $185. Get it all for $95. Just slightly over its, what would that be? What, $2.50 over half? So it's 50.0 something percent off. And you'll like it. You really will. Not only for yourself, but you'll also like giving it to somebody. If you know somebody that wants to talk about these things, who's always saying stuff around the family gathering area, whether it's the table or the lounge, like the crazy uncle that the rest of the family doesn't want you to talk to because he's got these wacky ideas about conspiracy and enslavement of humanity and stuff like that. Well, if that crazy uncle doesn't already have a subscription to Caravan to Midnight and access to the Operation Classified Vault archive, I can't imagine that he doesn't if he's a crazy uncle talking about stuff like that. But just in case, give that to him for Christmas. Give your crazy aunt who talks about conspiracy theories. She's not crazy. Neither is your uncle. They're awake. And obviously you are too, or you wouldn't be here. So what are you waiting for? Come on and join us. You'll be helping us out a lot. We're not going to the islands to go hang out and party with the hookers and alcohol and any kind of drugs we can survive, despite the tender number of my summers here on planet Earth. I'm just not really that guy. What we do is we expand the operation so we can reach more people. A lot of people are out there talking the same kind of thing. Oh, we're going to bring such and such to 40 million people, or was it 400 million people in Europe? Did that happen? No, it didn't. We do what we say we're going to do. And we are able to do it because of your support. Your support second only to the will of the Lord, who gave us this mission to begin with. So we pay our respects to him with a capital H first. And after that, we pay our respects to you for making this program possible. All right? How about a beautiful musical interlude and then kind of a wacky conversation, but I'll tell you, it's going to yield some good things. I think you're going to like this a lot. All right? Stand by.